This is the news from the CBI, and it's devastating, frankly. The CBI, pretty respectable group of people, right up there, a bit of a crown in British industry, as it were, when it comes to knowing their stuff. Why wouldn't they? Unemployment set to rise, 200,000 more Brits without a job, and growth to a snail's pace, likely to ever get over 1%. What is going on? In a moment, Christopher Snowdon is with us. Ewen Stewart, firstly, Director of the Institute of International Monetary Research, University of Buckingham, also part of the Growth Commission. Ewen, good afternoon to you. Nice to have you with us. I mean, look, I'm not saying it's easy. I couldn't grow the economy. I couldn't run the economy, but then I'm not paid to do so, but plenty of other people are. What has gone wrong?
Well, how long have you got? Really, since the Industrial Revolution, Britain's GDP per head has grown about 2% per annum. But actually, that stopped about 15 years ago. And it stopped during the global financial crisis, and it's gone actually almost to zero. And that is unprecedented in the last 200 years.
Yeah.
And I think what it's been is a very slow unwinding. Government's got bigger and bigger, and it's crowded out the private sector. So in the last 20 years, the state was roughly a third of the economy. It's almost half the economy today. Taxation, as you'll be well aware, has risen very sharply. Energy prices are the highest in the world. And regulation, my goodness, regulation continues to increase. You know, the growth crisis is a crisis of government, and it's self-inflicted.
You might think, I mean, the last point about regulation, look, I get it. We happen to have a government that aren't, that front bench is not full of entrepreneurs and those that are instinctively understanding of business. And I'm sure on a good day they would probably admit to that. But you'd like to think there's someone in there that knows what they're doing. The very least, however, that you'd think they would know is that regulation is the enemy of growth. And when I say regulation, I'm not talking about a total laissez-faire approach, but just backing off a little bit, giving wiggle room and breadth to small, medium, large businesses who can crack on without red tape strangling any scintilla of hope or growth in their own businesses and portfolios and ambitions. Surely a sixth form economics student knows that bit.
You would think so, but in actual fact, they appear not to. They seem to want to centralise. They seem to think they know best. If you just take it back a stage, what is regulation? It's effectively saying the way that we think you should do it is better than the way that you know you should do it.
Yeah.
So it basically damages competition. It adds prices. And I was with a client of mine, actually, and we were talking about the fund management industry. And they were saying that something like 15% of their costs are regulation. That goes on people's bills, and that's one example. Industry after industry we've seen huge increases of regulation, and it's inflationary.
In terms of growth, I mean, as you rightly say, this isn't entirely new. The global financial crash seemed to have a particularly acute effect on our economy. I know not most first world economies didn't escape it, but we appear to have somehow carried the gold on this one. So we can blame Starmer as much as we like. He did talk about growth a lot when he was electioneering and when he first came into office, but it does predate him. What has gone wrong here? Because it's not as if we haven't got brains outside of government, people like yourself who could say, well, actually, you need to do this. There's nobody doing this, it seems, Ewen.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, this isn't a developed economy problem. There are many rich economies that are growing. America has been growing quite substantially. Canada, Australia. Look across the water, the Republic of Ireland. They've all done things differently. And what have they done differently? Well, there's subtly different approaches from different countries, but most of them have got much lower energy prices. And our energy prices is a matter of choice. It's a matter of net zero and regulation. We've chosen to do that. We've chosen to increase taxes more rapidly than any European country, with the exception of Greece, over the last 20 years. And we've taken regulatory excess to, I can hardly think of another European country that's taken regulation to the levels that we've taken it. And what this has done is to swap a productive private sector into a highly unproductive public sector, and that has slowly strangled the economy. So we don't need to have low growth, it's a choice. The trouble is unwinding this. There's not a magic bullet to grow the private sector, but we have to start to unwind what's happened in the last 5 and 10 and more years, and gradually that will start to improve the economy.
Yeah, it's the bureaucracy is just extraordinary. It's sort of everywhere. I was not fully connected to this, but it just shows where bureaucracy is at, Ewen. I was doing, I won't go into the details, there was a business transaction thing I was doing with my own accountant, and I had to, I was required to fill out some details to make sure I wasn't a money launderer. Now, I was told, don't worry. You know when somebody says, don't worry, it'll only take you a couple of minutes to fill it out? Straight away, there was a bit of a red flag there for me. And through this form comes, and I look at it, it's full of terminology. I could not, for 1 second, I had to then pass that back to the accountant to translate it and help me do it. On and on this went, probably about 30 different emails and phone calls just to try to get this thing sorted. And I said to the woman, how many of these do you do a year? And she said, oh, tens and tens of thousands. I said, how many money launderers have you caught? And she said, none. I thought, right, there you go. But for some reason, this lovely little layer of bureaucracy stood in the way of me and doing something really simple, no big money involved in this at all, but I had to fill out this form. If businesses are dealing with that kind of stuff, just that sort of thing, that feel, that sense that whatever way they turn, there's a form to fill out or a taxation waiting to happen.
That's absolutely right. There's a real cost to this. You can see why the bang for the British buck is so low. So we spend about 50 or 60 billion on defence, for example, but the way that defence is procured, and much of that is down to regulation, is lamentable.
Yeah.
I mean, your listeners will be aware of how many ships we were able to send to Cyprus. I think it was none for the first week or two.
Yes.
It's the same with High Speed 2. There's a lot of studies that have been done to show how much it costs to build a mile of motorway in this country relative to France or Sweden or wherever it might be. And in many cases, it's 10 times.
Sure.
And much of this is down to regulation.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've got to start to unwind that. In actual fact, if it was my call, I would look to repeal each piece of legislation that has been enacted over the last 5 years with a presumption to repeal. Things worked better 5-10 years ago than they do now.
Yeah.
This regulation, it's basically been a logjam in our economy, and a very expensive one.
Indeed. Ewen, thank you. Great to have you with us. Ewen Stewart, Director of the Institute of International Monetary Research from the University of Buckingham.